talk more about this. Bring in political analyst Sanusha Naidu, who's joining us by Skype from Cape Town this afternoon. Sanusha, always good to speak to you. So the ANC went out today in Johannesburg as part of a campaign to get the William Nicol Drive renamed after struggle stalwart Winnie Madikizela-Mandela. That process, for all intents and purposes, was well underway. Was this an attempt to perhaps shift the conversation away from the issues around the step-aside issue and factionalism?
Good afternoon, Tembakile, and to the viewers. I think it's an easy win for you when you think about the transformation agenda, changing names and the roads and buildings and monuments, etc. Gives you a bit of a respite in terms of what is the real challenge happening within the party and around the step-aside rule. We see in the last several days how that has been hotting up with the tensions in the Free State, the tensions around the Northwest, some of the leaders like the former Premier of the Northwest talking about the rule being unconstitutional, that it doesn't have any traction, and then, of course, the Deputy Secretary-General Jessie Duarte actually saying that it's a non-negotiable issue at this kind of today in terms of the changing of the name of William Nicol to Winnie Madikizela-Mandela, and I think to a large extent bringing up the kind of significant symbolism and reverence that the former ANC Women's Women's League chair had seen in terms of her fight against the struggle just kind of resonates with the fact that some of the issues that were being discussed in that briefing that Jessie Duarte gave, it was really about the struggle of Winnie Mandela and to what extent, you know, she had to fight the kind of crisis in terms of the taking out all the stops in terms of what she had to put up with, and whether that has now resonated in the sense of a real transformation for women on the ground, for marginalized communities, for the vulnerable, for the youth, etc. And remember, tomorrow we are celebrating 27th April Freedom Day. And I think to a large extent, the conversation has shifted a lot to whether or not we have seen the real transactional value of the transformation agenda. And of course, what's happening internally in the party doesn't give us much confidence because of how contested it has become.
And on that note then, Sanusha, let me ask you this. How much has the ANC, as a party, and especially as a governing party, allowed its internal politics, the factionalism, to basically compromise issues such as transformation, issues such as moving the country forward economically, and in terms of the various other areas on which they won the election in part?
Yeah, it's a very important question you ask, because I think if we go back to '94 and we actually unpack and disaggregate some of those issues that you are raising now about 1 million homes, 1 million jobs, I mean, I'm curious to understand how did you come up with that figure? But the more important issue is also whether, you know, you had the traction, the capacity, the delivery of the ability to create that space for the delivery of those kinds of resources. 25 years plus later, we are still grappling with this. I mean, looking at some of the media reports in the Sunday newspapers, you would see that we're still grappling with the fact that sewage is a serious crisis in our country today. People are still not having the requisite norm, principles, values, and standards in terms of having a better life. We're seeing that their dignity to the right to life is also compromised. And I think it has become that very essence of how the internal dynamics of the party has overarchingly become the bigger question of what is happening in terms of where we are going. And for a party to become more concerned about whether you step aside, whether you deal with the governance deficit in your party and how you deal with it, to actually then do this at the consequences and at the way in which it has impacted on the South African democratic process, I think is just untenable and unconscionable.
And you hear Jessie Duarte today speaking in Johannesburg saying, look, the ANC will not be dictated to by a small group of people. She says it will implement its resolutions. Friday is the deadline for members, including the Secretary-General Ace Magashule, to step aside in line with that party resolution. Supra Mahumapelo, the former Northwest chairperson, speaking yesterday, said that, in fact, what needs to happen is that the resolution needs to be suspended until the next ANC conference in 2022. Which side do you think will ultimately win this one?
It's battles. it's all about which battles you win. So the first battle was the actual step-aside rule, or the interpretation of that from the resolutions of Nasrec and previously. Then, of course, it's now this battle. I don't think there's any one side that's going to win a battle in terms of this. It's going to keep wavering between the two sections, the two factions, and whether or not you have any traction. The real challenge here is that this rule is flimsy. It's very, very broad in its interpretation, and it's going to be a rule that you're going to keep coming to it, and it's going to be 30 days, it's going to be 60 days, it's going to be 90 days. We're going to keep seeing the can kick down the road in this regard.
And Tony Ngeni yesterday, speaking on JJ Tabane's show here on eNCA, was saying, look, he, for one, knows that he speaks for a group in the party, or for himself at least, as a disciplined cadre of the ANC who's not opposed to the enforcement of rules, but he says at the moment it appears that rules and resolutions are being used to target specific individuals. Is that what's going on?
I don't think it's new. I think it's always been part of the processes of how you deal with people within the party, how you deal with power structures and power factions. I think also what's interesting is that we've gone to a new level of leaking of conversations from the party. Private conversations that are happening in different spaces, and that's becoming a key driver. So I don't think that this is a new thing. I think that it's always been part of the way in which strategies have been devised in the party, in how you deal with opponents and how you deal with factions.
How does the ANC then minimize damage, minimize harm and risk ahead of that conference next year?
I think it's going to keep going through this kind of process. It's going to keep getting deeper and deeper. We can see it, the unraveling is just at a level that is so untenable that you can't really, as an analyst, I get lost for words to keep saying the same thing over and over. And so I think to a large extent, it's going to be whether or not they're able to have a reputational pullback in terms of revising. But I think that at the end of the day, it's about who actually retains that capture of the ANC and whether it can happen. I think the National General Council meeting, supposedly to happen towards the latter part of this year, whether that actually sees any kind of movement in terms of what's happening, and whether we can see, some kind of direction where the party will be going towards 2022. But right now, the stakes are high, the interests are very, very vested, and nobody is willing to actually be willing to give an inch in what they see. So I think we're going to keep seeing this, just getting more and more deeper into the quagmire that is already existing.
Let me throw something at you, Sanusha, very quickly, that I'm seeing on social media now, a statement from Senzo Mkhunu, the Public Service and Administration Minister. He's saying here, calling on citizens of South Africa to come forward with proposals which might assist in resolving the deadlock between government and unions in the public sector wage situation. That doesn't inspire much confidence, does it?
Sorry, you just broke up there for about 2 seconds, so I missed part of what you were asking.
I was saying, we're sitting here this afternoon, a statement that's going around online now where the Public Service and Administration Minister is basically saying the public needs to come forward and help with ideas to resolve the public sector wage crisis. That does not inspire much confidence in government's ability to lead then, does it?
Absolutely not. I think if you're asking the public to come up with proposals, then you actually don't have any proposals of your own. And this is where the state has to have the capacity and rebuild its capacity in dealing with a serious labor constituency that is a serious partner and part of the tripartite alliance. It's just a complete breakdown of communication, of engagement, and of where this public sector wage negotiations are going.